Nelson?
Nelson.
It is Nelson. Okay. That is correct. I just want to make sure everyone knows on the Swing Mountain Ranch, this is information only. They just wanted to come to the county council and just explain, hey, this is kind of what we're looking at. Information only, there's no votes or anything on anything. You're gonna get the same information that we're gonna get tonight.
And there's no votes.
And there's no vote. It's information only.
Well, thank you for your time.
Name?
Mark Nelson, Spring Mountain Ranch. And the other project, CISO, which is a project to Spring Mountain Ranch. Do I need to stand this way or can I stand both ways?
You can stand both ways. Just make sure the mic will come out, Mark. You need to talk.
Hey, I grew up in a small farming community. All of my life, I worked hard, dairy farmed, hauled hay, a lot of what you people do here. I understand it. What I didn't understand back then was I didn't understand how to buy land, how to sell land. I didn't understand about any kind of future use for land. And what I realized is there's a lot of misconceptions of what we're thinking and what we will or will not try to do. We're not coming in here wanting to ram this down anybody's throats. We're not against, we're here to say, look, here's what we're thinking. We would like your comments. I'm more than happy, Trappers Point Subdivision, I know has a lot of concerns. I would be more than happy to come to one of your HOA meetings, answer questions, sit and talk, have a dialogue. We want your input. If you think we're ramming this down your throats and we're just trying to get this passed through really quick, that is so far off. Most of you don't even realize that I've been at this since 2000, 18 years. That's not ramming it down anybody's throat. We're just now getting to the point where it's time to, let's put out some ideas of what we're thinking. Mountain Green is incredible. The views that you get from every mountain ridge is amazing. We don't want to destroy that. We don't want to put houses clear up the sides of the mountain where everybody can see rooftops all over the place. We want to protect the view shed as much as we possibly can. We don't want to develop a Clinton. Nothing wrong with Clinton, okay? If you want to live there, live in Clinton. But that's not what we want to do. I'm not a developer, okay? Let's get that straight. A lot of people think I'm a developer. I'm not a developer. I'm simply a landowner. A landowner that's trying to take some property, improve what it is, and make it worth more money than what it is currently, so that at some point, there will be a developer that will come in. But, you know, we understand that there's geotech concerns. We get all that. We're not the experts, but we will hire experts to take care of that. We understand there's a water issue. We also know, guess what? This is just really simple, and I think you'll all understand it. How many of you drive through Layton, South Weaver, anywhere down on the other side of the mountain? Where does that water come from to make all those lawns green down there? It comes from your valley. Goes right through that river, right down that valley. That's why these dams are up here. So it's not a matter that there's not enough water. It's a matter of management of the water. Highlands Water Company currently owns a well that produces 2,000 gallons of water a minute. If that well was allowed to be online currently today, you all would have enough water to water your lawns. You'd never run out of water. We would have enough water from Highlands Water Company that if Cottonwoods ran short, we could put a valve in and shoot water over to Cottonwoods, and Cottonwoods would have water. Most of you aren't aware of that. I've been involved in the discussions with all of that. We're not here to be anti or, you know, we're just here to try and say, look, here's what we're thinking. Now, I would hope and pray that as we bring this thing forth, that all of you that are against and all of you that are for, keep your minds open long enough that maybe with knowledge and with seeing what we're thinking and how we're thinking it, that you may be able to change your opinions. Like I said, I came from a small town. I remember when the first 30 acres sold. Right now, where I grew up, they're trying to put 500 home sites down a dirt road that went right in front of the house that I grew up in, on a dirt road. And people are up in arms about it. I get that. But growth has to happen, growth will happen. But growth has to be smart, it has to be thought out. You know, you guys have got something, I heard somebody mention Park City. This is so much better than what Park City could ever be. If it's planned right and it's done right, you guys have an incredible opportunity here to make it happen to where it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I think it's a place where, and some of you won't like this, some of you may like it, but I think it's a matter of people, instead of visiting Park City, may want to come over here and buy a hamburger and get a shake and drive their Harley through here or pull their boats through here. But instead of driving over into Weaver County and getting all the services here, they can stop here and get the services here. You've got an incredible opportunity to make that happen. Now, Park City was an old town that they just kind of built everything they could around it. You have no town. You can plan it. You can make it beautiful. Anytime anybody would like to sit down and talk, I would love, now, I'm not gonna get in a screaming match or yell and holler, but if you wanna sit down and have an educated discussion, I will sit down with any of you, anytime. And set up a time, we can come in, we can sit down, we can go over it. We're not here to hide anything, and again, we're not here to shove it down your throats. So I'm gonna turn the time over to Corey Shoup, who's kind of done our rendering. He can explain some of it to you. Now, I understand that right now, some of you may look at this and go, this looks like Disneyland. That's what I said. My biggest thing when I was talking with Kent, and the reason that I hired Kent was I figured he knew the community. A lot of people know him for good and for bad. I also know that Kent has grown a lot since he was here in Mountain Green, or in Morgan County. He's been to Summit County. He's got a lot of knowledge under his belt. I've been very, very impressed with what Kent has done. So that's why I hired Kent, because I figured he knew a lot of you and that Kent could talk to you guys. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Corey and let Corey move forward. Like I said, I know that this looks like Disneyland. We're not going to try and do Disneyland. We just want to get Lagoon. So here's Corey.
Thanks, Mark. If it's okay with everyone, I think I'll put that back. It feels a little bit much like a form. Mr. Chair, Council, and audience, just a little background on who I am. My name is Corey Shoup. I'm the owner of Blue Line Designs. We are planners, and we work with municipalities and developers up and down the Wasatch Front. And primarily what we do is we address open lands that are faced with development and what kind of development that could and should be and what it's planned to be. And so we work on communities from St. George to southern Idaho. And we're excited for the opportunity that we have to be working with Kent and Mark on what we believe could be an outstanding community here in Mountain Green. I was born and raised in North Ogden. I'm a local boy for kind of. I mean, I didn't go to your high school. We were somewhat competitors, different. But anyway, I do know you're a couple of people in town. In fact, my brother and his family live in Enterprise, and I have some very close friends up in so enough about me. As far as the project goes, this is unrehearsed, and we're really just kind of shooting from the hip here. As far as, do we want to put a plan up that I can kind of, I was going to use a pointer and try and walk folks through, so.
Just really pretty chair, Kent Wilkerson. One the intent, let me go back just a little bit on the slides here. What our intent here me get the right slide up, is you got Mark's introduction. We want to give you a tour of what we call the potential of the property. And then you're gonna see a final slide after we go through this information brief that we handed you, all that information. We're actually gonna jump out of PowerPoint. Some people love PowerPoint to death, but we don't. And then when you see this slide back up, this is one, Chair, if you would, we'd like to refer it to you for discussion around the board. We don't anticipate this to be an absolute monologue. Y'all have the information, so if there's something you think that can wait to that point in the information brief, please wait to then. But if you think it's really gonna mess us up, please feel free to say, hey, well, I know member hasn't, keep this in mind here. Anyway, so with that, I'm gonna jump out of PowerPoint into Word. This is the document that you were given 2 weeks ago, because I know there's a lot to it. It says information brief, but I also know that it's not brief. In some cases, in other cases, it's very brief. We also have it in PowerPoint, or in Google Earth, so I can zoom in and jump around. With that, I'm gonna, do you want to run?
Well, while I talk, I'm not gonna touch anything, because I have
Okay.
a negative effect on athletics. So if you'll jump back to Google Earth, that might be the best way to just kind of orient everyone here. And I think both you and Mark put it best in saying, we've tried to envision what could be here and how it could benefit the community. And so
What I'm gonna do is, let me jump down through here really quick to that section of the information brief, just to keep us on a linear path. You've got a few corrections and a few things that I've thrown in here. There's zoning. We can go back and forth a little bit. This is, by the way, one of my favorite charts. This shows, hey, in reality, all of us residents, everybody here, is the future amount, is the organization. The Mark and his team is the silver, and you guys are the gateway. The most important part of this is actually all of us as future citizens and our posterity, and we appreciate that. But let me get down to, I love the thing. It's this section, if you're following in the paper copy, but this gives you the orientation of the whole project, and we're gonna jump into Google Earth where we go kind of community by community.
yeah, maybe if you'll just back out just a little bit, I'll try and help orient where we're at. So, because everyone knows it, here is the Sinclair down on the corner here, so that we can orient ourselves. And this is Trappers Loop that comes up and loops around here. And remind me, Trappers.
That's Trappers Point.
Okay, Trappers Point. I get all the trappers confused. But the property that we're talking about primarily is this property up in here. And so, as we try to consider what might be advantageous to a master plan, let me pause on master plan for 2 seconds. Oftentimes in the planning world, we hear people speak negatively toward Utah, and sure, I can do that, thank you. I was saying sometimes in the planning world, we hear a lot about the negativity of Utah and how it's growing. And that has to do primarily with the fact that Utah historically has grown small chunks in a planning world, small chunks at a time. And it's very incohesive. It's broken apart and it doesn't always gel together. And I think one of the advantages that we have in looking at this piece is this gives us an opportunity to say, what could a master plan community do, and how could it approach some of the concern that's there, address that, and make life better for everyone, and not have a development that is patchworked together. And so, from a planning perspective, that's where we get excited, saying that it gives us an opportunity to look 30 years, 40 years into the future and answer questions about how do we provide housing that will meet the needs of a young couple as well as an older couple, an active couple as well as a couple that doesn't ever come here. And I shouldn't say here, but it doesn't ever get out. And so part of what we have here that's really difficult to see, and I'm hoping to point out, is some of the community. So right up in here is what we're calling the gateway. And so as you come up Trappers Loop, you would come off of here and enter down into the community through this roundabout. And we have some housing in here, and I'm not going to address whether the housing is visible or not. What we did was we overlaid a number of different maps to ask the questions: where's slope, where's geo, how are these things working, and then we loosely laid roads in. Is this exactly how it's going to be and turn out? Absolutely not. This has to go through so much extra work, but this does give us a starting point for some conversation. The blue areas that you're seeing right through here, and as Kent pans out, are ski runs. These areas, starting right in here, are ski lifts. These lifts would go in and allow people to ski in and out generally from their units. So if you own a single family home or a townhome, this provides you an opportunity for most of the community to ski in and ski out of those units. You have a wide variety of housing types. Without getting into every single kind, you have everything from townhomes with shared walls to single family detached units to large estate type homes. This lighter green that you're seeing meander through here is a golf course. This area would welcome a golf course if that was something that we felt like was appropriate. The other thing that we took into consideration in laying all this out are what are the current trail layouts. We overlaid all those trails, and we're accommodating for those trails to continue to exist. And with the amount of open space, okay, Kent's got the ability to turn all these on and turn them off. There's all the trails that we looked at. Part of what intrigues us as planners is rather than coming in and lotting, oh, that helped, thank you. Instead of coming in and lotting all this out and making it all private, and so I can't access necessarily the places that I could before, clustering these units together and only developing in certain areas allows us to keep the majority of the property open for ski runs, for hiking, for biking, for those things that we are enjoying and would like to continue to enjoy. If you'll pan a little more to the left, I'll point out there are some places like this up in here that are potential hotels, that you might have a place where, because the land is flatter here and we have our roads that again are loosely laid in there, we think topographically we can get them in there and get them to work just fine. But we have tried to mix this up and provide, okay, if there was to be a corporate event or whatever, you could certainly have a place up there that could be awesome, both winter and summer. As far as any other lots, generally speaking, those that don't have yellow around them are the smaller units, and those that are with yellow around them are larger units. And then we have a number of units throughout here that don't have a color, that just have a roof color, so they're very difficult to see. You can see them in here. These would be more of a state type units.
Your yellow's the existing.
Oh, sorry, yes, I apologize. The yellow is existing. I'm used to yellow down here. We did yellow back when I was helping the developer with some lots, and so we got a little confused, so thank you for the clarity. What elements am I missing without going too long? Because I know we're taking up our time. I hope that I've been able to give you a basic idea of what it is we're thinking here, the advantages to thinking of a master plan community, where we could locate some commercial, not all commercial. I don't think that anyone's interested in doing that, but definitely some commercial, and how to capture some of that without being a pass-through community will be key when it comes time to how does Morgan, how does this county want and expect to grow, and how can we forecast that and do our best to
This is actually, to me, one of the funnest parts of it. We all know the Mountain Green Town Center is where we want the apparatus, the ski activity, will terminate in business. And these trails give us the opportunity, and we're gonna need some county leadership on it, to give some life and vitality to your town center. The Spring Mountain Ranch project has two key pieces in this, but yes, we have looked a little bit beyond our borders to help master plan it. Some of these parcels are landlocked, and we've reached out to several of them to help them plan and make work all together. So, instead of our town center, this is our DAT here. Just being a cute little rural outpost with some really neat architecture, hopefully we've got some tie to rural and make it, hopefully add some more vitality to it. Again, what we're looking for is feedback and input on this, on how to make all this happen effectively. Okay, so what are you saying here as far as zooming through your brief? Yeah.
One thing you need to consider is right now, all this is private property. And I know a lot of people, use the mountainside as their own personal playground, but it is private property. And what we're thinking here is let's open this up so that it makes it public property for everybody. The trail system, mountain biking, maybe a small golf course. Now, understand that all this has to be feasible. You have to be able to get X number of units into a project in order to open it up. But we've left, how much, what percentage is green space that we've left here?
Over 60%.
Over 60% of the land that we've left is green space. Because if you ever go up on the side of the mountain and you look at the lay of the land, you'll see that you can build down into these little valleys and these little areas where you don't really get up onto the ridge lines and you don't really have rooftops all over the side of the mountain. And that's the intent, is to make that happen. And guys, this isn't gonna happen. We're not gonna start moving dirt next year. You know, we're looking at, and I'm probably never gonna move dirt because I'm not a developer. But you gotta look down the road. This is a 25, 30-year plan. It's already been going 18 years, and most of you weren't even aware of it. So, you know, for 18 years, we've been working on things. We're just getting to the point where we're rolling it out. We want input from the council, we want input from you. Again, we wanna make it so that this is a place where right now, you know, Snow Basin is up there selling hamburgers and salads, and people are up there mountain biking and they're doing concerts. All of that is going into Weber County, not Morgan County. We have the ability here to keep and generate tax dollars to benefit this county and open up private property and make it public property.
Sorry, Chairman, I was trying to, I guess at this point, we're kind of shifting from what I call the tour of the place, and into more, a little bit more of the specifics on that you found in your information brief. And that is, we've talked to different communities, but this gets down into the impact of the project. There's your corporate retreats. Oh, there's a forest district, that's fun when there's zero equivalent residential units there. But the impacts and benefits are something that obviously we could go on for days and days on, but I will not. And these two guys behind me will make sure I don't. And Chair, please feel free to say, hey, move along a little bit more rapidly. But I think that one of the impacts that we've tried to consider when we design and lay this out, we start with actually Snow Basin. I gotta show this one in particular because it's one of my favorites.
I'm gonna be your board and don't wanna hear anymore. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna cut Ken off.
That's fine.
We've kind of given you an overview, we've given you some thoughts. Let's move to the next phase, let's see where we go. I know there'll be some of you who'll be against us all the way through it. I'm hoping that as we go through, that we become more friends than we are enemies, and we can make it all work, so. I really don't think we have to say any more, if there's any comment from the commission. What we'd like is some direction on where we wanna go, where you guys want us to go, how you want us to proceed, so we have guidelines, we have it, so that we know where you want us to be.
All right. So you're ready for our input on it? Is that what I'm hearing, Kim? As I go through this,
If they got questions, great, we can ask them, whatever.
as I go through this, I find that your verbiage and everything that you're using is in comparison to Snow Basin and to Wasatch Peaks. Those two areas were designated in the master plan as resort districts, and therefore the process that they've used to come forward with their development agreements is a different one based on what that overall zoning was. So I want to make sure that we understand that this is a different process, that we're not using a resort district classification in this process. So those development agreements need to acknowledge that. Then you're also using a lot of master plan community. Kent, since you've been here, we do not have a PRUD or a PUD ordinance. And so to do this type of clustering without those ordinances in place isn't, fill in the blank. It's not really feasible without that. So you've got to remember that in this process that you're going forward, and especially in your verbiage. I'm very familiar with the area. My main concern, and I will compliment you, you've been very detailed, right back to the communication log in the very, very back. And since we're going to be that detailed, I would like to point out that you've put in there that I could not get past the geological. So since it's there, let's deal with that, because that's my main concern on this. I'm very familiar with the Green Rock Trappers Point area. And I'm grateful that I have a neighbor who brought me over this little book, Geologic Hazards in Morgan County with Applications to Planning. I think you're familiar with it. And what I did with it is in your geotech section, what concerns me the most is you don't have anything since 2000 in there. There's one document, and it does not document the 2006 Creekside Drive. It doesn't indicate any of the stream alteration permits, those things that those letters were coming to you at the county in the notifications on those items. But one of those, to quote from the state in their Creekside Drive area, active landslides in the Creekside Drive area between Mountain Green and Morgan County between June 2005 and December 2006 by Francis Ashland. This is a report of the investigation from the Utah Geological Survey. And it says, in this area, avoidance was the primary recommendation of good for the, which is the name of the geotech, for the identified unstable lots. Nevertheless, avoidance nor the other two stabilization options listed above were recommended in the pre-development geological phase by Keisler, who actually wrote this, so it was interesting to me. However, if I take your drawing number 1 in your geologic hazards, and I blend it up so that it's the same size, and then I photocopy the existing known, and on your item number 2, you've got the soils.
Is that this map?
Yeah, this is the state map of the soils, and you've overlaid that on your design 2, on your 2, but you missed this one that has the pre-existing, the ones we know about already.
That's this map right here.
Well, if I overlay this, there's my concern, Kent. So I've blown this up so that I can get it as close to that as I can. And there's where my problems lie. If I look at what we already know, and we're trying to avoid those particular areas, I don't know how to do that. With a lot of these fall right within the areas that we already know. So, you've already listed in there that I can't get past the geo. This is why I can't get past the geo. Tell me how we avoid those if this is where they are and this is where your developments are. They're in the same spot.
Okay, so we have to hire a geotech firm that will come in and say, yes, you can, no, you can't, before we ever get approval. You can't just go in and start moving dirt around without getting approval. So we will go through that process, and we will make sure that, you know, we're in areas where the mountain's not gonna slide on your moving in. We have no intentions of, I don't wanna lose my home, I don't want anybody else to lose their home, and I don't wanna be any part of somebody losing their home.
In all fairness to you, again, this is a concept.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a concept.
We're not
Yeah, totally.
voting on
So a lot of,
1,000 homes in this canyon or anything, it's a concept.
a lot of you, I heard the comment mentioned about the individual that lost their home over in the Highlands area. Well, that guy was my partner. His name was Tom Hayes. He died of cancer. The day before he died of cancer, I sat by his bedside and I promised him that we'd make sure Nancy was taken care of. And that's why Nancy is now living in South Weber in a home that was paid for, because we took care of her. And so I don't want that, I don't want that to
Actually,
happen. I don't want that
The
to happen.
county really took care of it. You may have taken care of Mrs. Hayes. The county
Well,
paid to demolish
I
the
didn't have
house.
anything to do with
Yeah,
it.
the county paid for it. so
I never had
you're
anything to
correct.
do with the house. I said we took care of Nancy.
Yeah, you didn't take, well,
We took care of Nancy.
I want the record to be correct. It cost the county a lot of money due to slope stability, and Ms. Cannon is correct. You have
And we
been
don't
so,
want that to happen.
you have been so detailed in listing each council member and how their initial, phone calls were. It's completely inappropriate for this to even be in this document. You're the one who opened the door for it, and so we'll let Ms. Cannon have her say. But it's completely inappropriate for you to list private phone conversations or meetings with council members and put that in a development agreement. And so you guys opened the door for that. But the Hayes home cost the
My
county
apologies.
a lot of money, and we were not taken care of, so be clear on that.
Yeah, I never had anything to do with his home or the build job or the home or anything else. But I am aware of the slopes, and I don't ever wanna see that happen again. And we understand that. So that's why we would hire somebody, a professional, that has the degrees and we know how to take care of this stuff, and they can tell us what we can and can't do, and that would be part of, we couldn't even pull a building permit to do anything until that was done. And so that's all part of what we would want to do.
So, you done? Mine's quick. Member Cannon also asked a lot of the questions I had, so I can make this very quick. You made a comment in your address to the community here that there's a well available that will produce 2,000 gallons a minute, and if it would be allowed to come online. Can you expound on that? Tell us why it's not being allowed to come online? Because I just want to make sure the community knows, council cannot dictate whether or not a water system comes online. We don't have any of that authority. It's handled by the Division of Drinking Water. But I would like to hear what this is.
There is one signature that needs to be signed on what they call a protective easement on the well. That piece of paper has not been signed. There are some issues going on between the two parties involved. Highlands Water Company owns the well, somebody else owns the ground. There has been a easement on that ground, and with the simple signature of one individual, that water could come online. And I really can't go into more detail
I won't ask
at this
for more
point.
detail.
Any other questions for Mark or Kent? Boy.
I think Tina nailed one of the biggest concerns that I have, absolutely, is the geotechnical there as well. Another thing that has really become prevalent this year is fires. And fires, dealing with areas like this, I mean, up in the Echo, I witnessed the fire that was going on up in Echo, and as I was talking there with my family, they're going, what's that over there on that ridge? Well, it was someone's home. That was, it wasn't close, but they were on a pre-evacuation order. I mean,
mean, look at down in the Uintas last year at the bottom of the canyon.
I was one of the homes that was evacuated down there, but.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you know exactly what I'm trying to get at, I think. I think there's a huge concern that as we start to encroach farther out and farther up into the hills, we need to start being more concerned about not only the vegetation that's there, but the vegetation that we're gonna bring in with it. So that we're not adding fuel to the fire, per se. That we're actually doing the best we can to mitigate that if we choose to go that route. But honestly, like I've said before, the biggest hurdle you guys have is the geological hurdle. And then, if you haven't picked it up tonight, I'll reiterate one more time, water's a huge issue down in that end of the county.
Not to belabor anything, but your points, all of your points are really well taken. And I think it goes back to what I was trying to say from a planner, not from a city or county or community standpoint at all, but from a planner standpoint, to have the ability to look at a large piece of property and master plan it, to give appropriate access to fight future fires. Now, granted, there are issues that come with inviting more people up there. We do know people are coming, Utah's experiencing growth. But if we can master plan it in a way that's appropriate, we can have better access to address some of those things. I think, for me personally, as a planner, the bigger question is it the right step forward to look at master planning an entire community rather than letting this develop slowly over time in small chunks? Because as we know, as Utahns, that will be the flip side to that coin. Either we can look at it as a master plan and address some of these issues, or
Well, actually,
go back to chunking it out piece by piece.
with your question, that was actually my concern number 4. One of the things that we have been looking at, there's been much mentioned about the units. In fact, if I read the flyer right, 4,000 units. And there are some of these that are yet to be built, but when they come online, will be on the Highlands water system already. So I do understand why that there is a concern. We're not done with what the requirements for water are going to be with Highlands water before we even add these on. But my 4th concern was in a master plan community and a planning stage, one of the things that the vision in the Mountain Green Plan was that the density was at the city center or the town center, which you've shown on your map. But then it gets larger, the lots get larger as it moves out from there. This goes exactly opposite in putting some of those commercial centers and those hotels outside of that. So as you're listing your concerns, that was my concern number 4.
Yeah, Tina, that is a perfect question, because again, it's a chicken and an egg type of thing. In planning, if we were to take 5 hotels and put them at their core, all of a sudden we're introducing a whole new set of concern and problem. Now all of a sudden, Mountain Green is becoming something that it was never wanted or intended to become. Now it's a massive town center. By spreading that out, we can distribute some of that traffic to a hotel and to some ski in, ski out type residences that are not all pushed into this core. Now, if we go places downtown, Clinton was brought up, not that it's the metropolis of Utah, but what you're seeing there is what you'll see in a lot of areas where it just happens over time, and it will densify toward that core. And that we cannot stop, but we can control it to a point where we're saying, how dense do we want that core to be in order to function as a small town? Because without it, everyone will now start to push into that core because of the values and, okay, I want to do a hotel because of, Snow Basin gets 50,000 ski trips in 3 months every year, and I want one too, and all of a sudden we'll start to feel those pressures. I think by distributing it out, you can also distribute out some of the issues that goes with that.
I think one thing that's a little overwhelming too is like, hey, we're looking at doing 2,000 homes. That's a little overwhelming in our rural county in which we live.
I
But this
totally
is Utah County, 2,000 homes is nothing.
I totally agree, and what is always so difficult is, when you say a number like that, including my own mind, we jump to tomorrow or the next year, 2,000 units are gonna pop out of the ground, and we'll never get over that, because that's how we as humans operate, but it would literally take years and years and years for all of that to come to fruition, and that's the part that we do forget. But if it's part of the master plan and we're working toward it, and in 20 years from now, we have a more dense community that's up there around the golf course, then that could be a really great thing. And if it did have, like Sundance, if it did have a little restaurant up in that area, it's never going to be a town center, but it could be a small place where you say, you know what? Taggart's has it too. Wait, I'm gonna go into this place because it is beautiful. I can't sit out on the patio. It's still nice. And so, it's just a whole.
You sign up for 40 minutes, you have 3 more minutes. Actually, we'll give you 4.
We're done, we're done.
I'll second that.
Does anyone have any more questions for these guys?
That's what
Did we want some direction from you on, where you'd like us to go and how you'd like it?
I'm gonna caution the council, when you start doing that, it makes it sound like if you do this, and this, we're okay with that. It may be a different council down the road, and so this was listed for a presentation. If you feel strongly and want to say something, you can, but as your attorney, I would say, don't give them a laundry list of punch tickets, because when they punch those tickets, they're gonna come back asking
When
for something.
Kenneth talked to me, I suggested everything usually goes through the planning commission before it ever comes to council, and they wanted to have that little information meeting, so this is entirely up to them, whatever word you guys go.
Isn't that the process,
Yeah.
generally?
It is,
Planning commission, and we get it last.
absolutely.
Chair, my only thought, last 30 seconds,
Yeah.
is
You
I,
actually got 2 minutes.
well, if I did, that I'd like to hear from any of the other members. This is, again, information for us.
Well, yeah, microphone can't, right.
All right, like I said, I'd rather hear from some of the other members rather than us continue to time.
I'm good. This was an information thing. That's what we presented to our audience. I mean, that's where it needs to stay.
In all fairness to Mountain Green, I mean, Snow Basin's already approved Sunday for 2,500 units. The Johnsons have got 500 and some units. I mean, so you're over 3,000